week 4 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few quarterbacks I have as sleepers this week. The first one, Andy Dalton of the Carolina Panthers. Last week, he took over the job for Bryce Young, and he came in and led his team to a blowout victory at the Vegas Raiders. Right now, Dalton available in 89% of fantasy leagues, and he's got that gunslinger mentality where he's just going to go out there, just going to try to drive that football down the field, got guys open, and they got some decent weapons. Deontay Johnson, Xavier Legette's going to get an expanded role with Thielen banged up and on IR with the hamstring injury, and Chuba Hubbard ran over 100 yards last week. I'm not saying this week Dalton's going to go out there and put up a monster performance once again, but it is one of his former teams and the team he started with in the Cincinnati Bengals. So I think in deeper leagues, he could be a sleeper option. Next quarterback, Bo Nix of the Denver Broncos. I know the matchup isn't good at all with the New York Jets, one of the better defenses in the league. And I also know Bo Nix, he hasn't thrown a touchdown so far this season, but last week, some good signs. He showed confidence in the pocket, converting on third down, and he used his legs as well to get some decent fantasy points, is Bo Nix. So last week at Tampa, 216 pass yards, 9 rush attempts, 47 rush yards, and a rushing touchdown, which was good for 19.3 fantasy points for Nick. So this week, like I said, this Jet defense, they've shut down quarterbacks so far in the early going this season. But this is a ball game most likely with Denver's trailing early and often, and Nick has no choice but to drop back 35, 40 times in this one to go out there and make plays, and most likely in garbage time as well, points on. So he's more of a deeper league, or if you're in a 2-quarterback league, then Bo Nix you could use as a deep sleeper. Your basic 10, 12-team leagues, obviously he's not going to be an option, but if he goes out there at the New York Jets and has another decent game, he's definitely someone that's worthy, I think, of adding off the waiver wire, especially how bad the quarterback position's been for the most part in fantasy football. Available Knicks in 89% of fantasy leagues, and the final quarterback I have as a sleeper is Gardner Minshew of the Las Vegas Raiders. I know Gardner Minshew, he was benched last week, even though it was garbage time in the second half, and Antonio Pierce actually said that he was considering benching Gardner Minshew this week and starting O'Connell, but that's obviously not the case. Minshew available as well, 93% of fantasy leagues. In the last couple weeks, week 2 with Baltimore in the victory, 276, a touchdown, interception. And last week versus Carolina, the stat line wasn't horrible, but they were blown out quickly in that ball game. 214, a touchdown, an interception, and 14 rushing yards and a 2-point conversion. So I know this week it's not the greatest of matchups versus the Browns, even though we know Myles Garrett is banged up and the Giants beat this Brown team at the dog pound last week. So maybe Minshew with good weapons like Devontae Adams and Bowers could surprise and be a deep sleeper this week. So that's a few quarterbacks I have as sleepers for week 4 of the fantasy football season.